live on Facebook. Good afternoon, everyone. It's 12 o'clock noon in the East Coast. It's Carm Capriato, episode 154 of the Town Hall Academy. Boy, it's anniversary time for me, everyone. I don't know if you know it, but today the Remarkable Results Radio popped out our 500th episode.
Fantastic.
Today.
Unbelievable.
154 town halls and about 79 for the records. So we're rocking, we're rolling. It's been great. And I think you'll really like what we did in the 500th Remarkable Results. I had 6 shop owners on, and we asked them, hey, in the last 5 years, what's worked and what's not? And I got to tell you, it was good. It was insightful. It was very transparent. It was also very emotional. And I shall thank them for knocking it out of the ballpark for our 500th. Got a great panel today. We're going to talk about cash. Put your hand in your pocket. If there's a big wad of money in there, it should be in the bank. Remember that. It should always remember that. Don't go flashing it around or giving it to mama to buy groceries. Glad to have you here. Hey, we want to thank our sponsors. Let's talk SMS systems. No other tool can transform your business like your management system. Shopware's leading shop management system is helping shops like yours generate more profit per ticket and giving you more efficiency from your staff. Get a free demo at shop-ware.com. More time, more profits. Thank you to Shopware. I got a great panel. Bob Greenwood's here.
Hi, Carm.
Here on this show. Yes, nice to see you. CEO of Automotive Aftermarket e-Learning Center. And Jeremy O'Neill, Freedom Auto Repair, Hesperia, California, and president of AdvisorFix. And my friend Greg Bunch from Aspen Auto Clinic and president of Transformers Mastermind. You had a big week. You brought in a lot of the Transformer groups, right?
Yes, we had our Platinum meeting, which is all multi-store owners, and absolutely had an incredible meeting. And I think we counted up, we've added 17 new locations to the family of 15 shop owners, and got more on the horizon. So my guys are in acquisition mode. It's fun to see and fun to be a part of.
Interesting. They're growing and everything. And Greg and I were on a panel at Apex. And by the way, Greg, that I think we're getting ready to edit that and put that out as a podcast.
Oh, awesome.
And it was on consolidation in the industry. What do we think is going to happen out in 2030, and what do we have to do to prepare? And one of the ways to prepare is cash. And, cash comes from the activities we generate in selling things in our business, and whatever's left in the bank at the end happens after we pay all the bills. Sometimes, just sometimes, there's more outlay than there is inlay, and we get into some really, really big trouble. And so I've had this cash flow thing on my wanting to talk about topic lists for the town hall for 2 years. Glad to have you guys. I think you're perfect to talk about. And ever since I grew up in business, people always told me, Carm, cash is king, cash is king. And I'm not sure everyone really understood it, because sometimes when you get into business and you start generating cash, you say, ooh, look at all that. That's mine. And it's, and if you didn't go to business school and you didn't understand all the ramifications, what's coming after the cash is generated, you get into some big trouble. So, Greg, why is cash king?
Well, that's a great question. Because more businesses actually go out of business for lack of cash than they do for lack of profit. And there's a story about 2 different computer companies, one that spent all the money building the computer, shipping the computer, not getting paid for 90 days after they shipped the computer, versus I think it was Dell, forgive me if I don't know the exact brand name, but the other computer company, you got to quote unquote custom order your computer, but they didn't they got the money up front. They were able to build the computer and ship it, and one of them ran out of cash, not because they weren't profitable, but because they had all that money extended, and the other computer company dominated. So that's an important lesson. It's one of the first things when I had this consulting group come to my company when I started 20 years ago, and I remember seeing that as one of the statistics, being underinsured, being undercapitalized, and at that point I was absolutely undercapitalized, but always remembering that more businesses fail because of lack of cash than lack of profit. In fact, it's funny you mentioned this, and we started this out because I've had multiple clients that when things are going well, I say, go get your line of credit. What do I need that for, Greg? I got money in the bank. Go get your line. Trust me, please. Go get a line of credit. You want to get it when you don't need it, not when you do need it. And 3 of them at this last mastermind meeting thanked me profusely. Hey, remember when you told me to get that credit line? I did, and I'm so grateful I did, because when you start growing a business, there's a lot of landmines, and $100,000 can disappear really, really fast. So having that line of credit could keep you in business.
But let me just put up a warning here. Just because you got the line of credit and it's there doesn't mean you spend it on the wrong things.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I'm sure we'll be talking about that here today.
All right, let's talk about that. Bob, when you take on a new client, do you look at cash right away?
Absolutely. And key ratios in the business too, which you want to determine. And a lot of the better shop owners are really doing detailed monthly statements that analyze their business properly. Too many shops just look at sales and their bank account balance, and that's not the right way to run a business today. You've got to look at your key ratios. Where are they? Where should they be? And if I'm not there, what do I have to do to get there? Because cash management is so critical to moving the business forward. And we're not paying enough attention to that in today's business. And remember, and you've heard me say it before, learning how to be a CEO, part of that job is monitoring that cash and where it's going and how you're using it. Now, when you're spending your cash too, a good question to start asking yourself is, if I am using cash to do something, whether it's equipment, tools, whatever, ask yourself, how is that going to help my business this week, this month, this quarter? And if it's not going to help, then don't spend it and work it out. But you've got to think about that cash management. And I totally agree with Greg to have that line of credit in hand, not using it until it's necessary. And you're only using it because the cash is coming in eventually. But it's all part of the scenario today. And we got to pay a lot more attention to it.
Yeah, I'm sure you can concur, Bob and Jeremy, as you work with shop owners across the country, that I'm still surprised, but I'm not, right? When we're talking $2.5 million, $5 million, $6 million companies that still literally run their business by the checkbook, and they spend when they have it and they don't spend when they don't, and do not have a strategic approach to cash flow management or investing, looking at what they're investing in. It's just absolute seat of the pants and very scary, and I think all of us, when we started our shops, probably started out that way. But holy cow, when you're doing multi-millions of dollars and you're still running it that way, that's pretty darn scary. There's a lot of risk involved with, the families that you employ and everything else. So I'm glad you start there, and we do too.
So Jeremy, you probably, knowing you're a shop owner and a sales advisor coach, when did it hit you so hard that cash was king?
It's when you teach and train, you have a different mindset in when you're looking at from afar and you're seeing your clients and what they go through. And I remember I walked into a client's shop. This is about 10 years ago. And I went in his back office, and his desk was literally piled 4 feet high with legal notices and paperwork. And I was just like, I couldn't even get beyond the mess. And come to find out, a few years later, he actually got arrested for some stuff. So it's like, okay, it hit me then that, okay, you got to take care of the accounting, you got to take care of the paperwork. But what really hit me today, and, I'm a single shop owner with a small consulting company. I found the worst shop in the United States and bought it 3 years ago, literally with not a lot of cash in the bank. I wasn't funded, and basically had to start from day one to grow sales. Now, what's interesting with growing sales is you can create a lot of cash with sales, but what Greg's talking about as far as the checkbook balance, the way that you run your business, there's an emotional tie to that. And there's 3 tiers that I look at with cash management. Number 1 is survival. How many shop owners are simply lost in survival, where their daily activities, and I call it the mad scramble to put cash in the bank to cover past due bills, right? You just go to work, you work your tail off, and this is a very hard business. It's one of the easiest businesses to lose money in. If you don't repair a car properly, you got to buy another part that you hope fixes it, and then there goes your profit, right? So many shop owners live in survival, and for the first 18 months, our shop was in survival mode, and it's not a fun place to be. We've been able to move into stability, which is tier 2, which is where you basically know you can cover the bills. You're ahead on some certain things. You're not behind on your bills. You've got your accounting in order. You can look at your cash flow statement. You can look at your profit and loss and really know where the cash is coming and going and how you're making money. And then my goal next is to get into tier 3, which is significance, where you really begin to create wealth and do kind of what Greg and what Bob are helping their clients do, which is if you want multiple locations, get into where you're leveraging your wealth and your time and you're not having to invest that time. And so cash for me, Karma, was day one. You know, we opened up the checking account with $10,000 in cash, and it went literally, I think, in a few hours. It wasn't days or weeks, right? Your mind says, I've got this much money, I can last this much time. And then all of a sudden you wake up the next morning and your account balance is $100 and you're like, whoa, that panic sets in. So cash is definitely king. And like Greg said, it's amazing how fast in this industry you can burn through $100,000 literally, you know, really quick. So I love what we're talking about. So for me, it's identifying those 3 levels, you know, getting out of survival, stability, and then getting up into significance. And you can be in stability and fall right back into survival literally in a week or 2.
Absolutely.
I know there's a lot of shops that have been hurt. In December was a very off month for, you know, certain parts of the country. And that's where you got to have your financial house in order to make sure that you can survive those times.
Right.
So guys, is it the cash in the bank that drives this teeter-totter car count thing that we get into struggles with?
Well, the cash is a product of your pipeline, right? It's how many cars a day is your shop taking in, how good is your inspection process, how good are your sales process, and how many sales are going to actually hit the books today? What are you closing out to keep that pipeline flowing? So there's a flow of money that happens with every shop. And yes, Carmen, it does come down to the cash in the bank, but ultimately it's about production.
It comes down to cash. By the way, can you all hear me?
Yes.
I got a comment that my microphone was a little too low. I've looked at everything. It seems to be okay. All right.
Yeah.
So if I've got cash in the bank and I don't know the disciplines of managing cash, where it goes, what buckets it goes into, what it's obligated to, I spend it. Mm-hmm. And look at that neat new tool, and look at that neat new this, and what about that? And I want that, and I need this, and then we end up running out of money to pay for the real things that top line was supposed to pay for.
And that's where the power of a budget comes in. So
I was going to say that. Oh.
Sorry, Bob. Great minds think alike, or broken clocks right twice a day, right? You know, I teach people, number one, personally, they got to live on a budget. And, you know, there's an old saying in farming, you don't eat your seed. And so, you know, and we have all seen this and experienced this where, you know, let's say a shop owner starts out as a technician. He was making $80,000 a year. You know, when he started his company, or when he worked for somebody else, and he goes and starts himself his own business. Now he's living off $30,000 for 3 or 4 years. All of a sudden, he gets some coaching, he gets some training, he builds up his business, and boom, he's making $150,000 a year. The temptation is to automatically start spending $150,000 a year. Plus, you know, they buy the boat and the RV and the ATVs and get a bigger house and all that stuff. And now when there's a downturn in the business, or they want to grow, or they want to hire a technician, but they need to do marketing, there's no actual cash in the bank. And so, you know, if you're living off a lot more than, and that's why I say, pay yourself a reasonable salary for what you do, and for a time period. And if you're in growth mode, because there's an old saying, fast growth eats cash fast, you've got to live on your personal budget. And then that bleeds over into the business where, you know, we all know that recruiting is important. You know, how many people put $500 a month away for recruiting expenses? Marketing is an expense. Well, marketing is an investment and an expense. Well, that's an argument for a different podcast, but, you know, buying a new alignment machine, right? You know, all those things, they need to be strategically budgeted out, not just, you know, oh, that sounds like a good deal, go ahead and sign me up for that. So, you know, we can get into training, right? You know, Jeremy and I both do service advisor training, and I actually have a spreadsheet on what the value, right? If you go to send your advisor to training and they increase their average repair order by $50 and their GP by 2 points, you know, you're going to get a, whatever it is, 21-to-1 return on that investment, right? Where if you buy some unique scanner that only, you know, for a car that you only see twice a month, right? You may never, ever get your money back on that investment. So that's my soapbox.
You know, you look at supporting cash, but you've also got to have an emergency fund. And I've counseled clients where a simple little thing, take $10 per RO and put it into a savings account. And I don't care if it's an oil change, $10 per RO goes in. So if you're doing 200 ROs a month, you're going to start building that up. You've got to have an emergency fund in place because you just never know when things happen. As you said, December, for example, poor month. So I've got some cash built up. And managing that cash is so critical. And understanding your numbers is so critical. And one of the key numbers that I really focus on is the amount of labor sold to the total wage package of the entire company. And that includes all benefits, all wages, management wages, tech wages, service, everybody. And when you can achieve $1.30 to $1.35 in labor to $1 in your total wage package, your bottom line is going to go through the roof. And you will have good cash flow. Too many guys don't even look at that number.
So does that equate to 30 to 35% of your total sales? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying $1.30 in labor revenue to $1 in my total wage package, just labor.
Gotcha.
So what I just heard is costs, managing costs. And so many times when we run out of cash, it's because we've overspent. You could argue that the top line isn't strong enough either, but at least, wow, there's two places to look, right? And when we had, we did a lot of talk on profit first and, basically putting cash in buckets. And the thing that I loved about, go back to it's all about budgeting. If you need to pay the bills out of the operating account, once everything else is accounted for, my God, you have to then start looking at those cost accounts and say, what am I paying for uniforms? And what am I paying for this? And what am I paying for that? And if cash is king, good cash management is really managing costs too.
Right.
And Carm, it's interesting. I think there's a couple different tiers of in the auto repair shop owner. If you're, at $1.5 million and below, a lot of times you're a shop owner that's working in the business. And a lot of times you can't get out of the business to go work on the stuff that we're talking about. Like I'm in my back office here, and it's interesting, for the past 3 months, we've kind of reshifted staffing again. And for those of you that know my history, I think this is version 22.0. However, when I get my hands dirty and I'm touching my tools, my heart bleeds because I know I'm neglecting my duties as the CEO and as that shop owner to go work on those things behind the scenes that are so important but not urgent, right? So we get the time quadrant that comes into play here. So I think it's very important that, yes, you're right. Those are key things. And the other thing that I want to make a point here is this. I think it's very sensitive in our industry right now is pricing. If you're not making enough money, there is enough room to increase your pricing to become profitable. The only thing holding you back is your belief in your worth. I don't care what the dealerships around me charge. I don't care what other shops charge, because they don't have my bills. They don't have my staff. They do not have anything that I have within my walls. I have to charge a fair price for what I deliver, and I have to believe in my worth. And it's interesting going back on the counter and selling and seeing my mindset sometimes on pricing, where I'll short my technician time because, I don't want to be too expensive. And it's just a mindset thing. So if you're hurting for cash in the bank, a simple thing you can do is look at your labor, rate, what you're charging labor, and increase it, because you're worth it. You have a unique team and talent. And the one thing that's going to become more prevalent is customers are checking pricing. I was on the phone yesterday with a customer, and he was online, and he said, that part is this much, this part is that much. So you have to be skilled at overcoming those objections, because if you're not, these savvy customers are going to eat your lunch and they're going to tear your profits apart. I can defend my labor all day long. When I'm selling a commodity, it's a little bit harder. So I'd rather push my labor pricing than the GP on parts per se. So it's there for you. You just got to believe in it and do it.
About an hour of our mastermind was that exact topic and discussion. And I know we've talked about it on other venues, but really moving to that model. And, if you're going to decrease your parts margin by 20%, how many dollars does that mean you have to add to your labor rate to compensate for that? But I think that'll be an ongoing conversation in the industry of, who's going to be the early adopters of that, and is that really the way we're going to go as an industry?
We're in a knowledge-based business today, and it's all about the labor component, your knowledge. And you've got to have the right labor rate based on your competency and what you're producing. And they're not all equal out there. So why is one shop being able to even charge more than a dealership? Because they're far more competent. And their clients know it. So it's not about the price. It's about your knowledge. And one of the biggest things that affect cash, obviously, is accounts receivable. That is the biggest cancer in our industry. And I think people have got to learn how to balance their business properly. And when you're getting into small fleet accounts and that type of thing, you've got to have those receivables under control. But even before you take on a fleet account, you've got to start working out the profitability on the bottom line of the revenue they're bringing in. And I'm shocked at how many people don't even calculate that. They're just looking at the gross sales and the gross activity that the fleet account is bringing in. And if it's not profitable, why even taking it on? That doesn't make sense. So I think there's some avenues here that everybody can slow down and start studying their business properly, seeing if they've got the right balance, making sure the receivables are under control. And a great guideline in your receivable balance is that it should never, ever exceed 20% of your average monthly sales. And your average monthly sales are calculated over the last 6 months. So if you're doing $100,000 a month, my receivable should never at any time be over 20 grand. And I'm shocked at how many businesses I go in and I'm looking at their receivable balance. My goodness, no wonder you have no cash. You're out of control here.
And they're not making money on it. They're not.
No, it's activity.
Right.
That's all it is.
Where did my cash go? And if you're not looking at the balance sheet, or you're not running your accounts receivable listings, and you're not making the phone calls, and you're not pounding your customer to get the money in, first of all, how many guys will say never carry accounts receivable? Now, when you start doing fleet work, or really, you sometimes have no choice. And sometimes they'll go to you and say, we'll pay in 60 days.
Yeah.
Well, that means if you were doing $10,000 a month for them and you have a parts bill that you need to pay, which is like $7 grand, you've got to have the cash to pay that while you're waiting on their money. And there's a cost factor there. And again, it goes back to the sophistication of really understanding how to run a business, why there's value in coaching, why there's value in 20 groups, why there's value in going picking up a night course.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure we've all heard the statement, keep it small and keep it all, right? People talk about, having a small business, but, referencing what Jeremy was talking about. And again, I've, built this business literally from my garage, to 5 locations. And so going through that process of, working in the business while trying to work on the business while being a single dad of 4 kids. And it was an absolute tough time. And I wouldn't recommend, I never want to go back to it. I'm too old for that now if I can help it. But, just knowing that, in order to have budgets and performance and cash management and all these things that we're talking about, you almost have to get to a certain level, or at least strive to get to a certain level where you can have somebody on staff that can do some of this work, because it's an important part of the business. And if you're the shop owner and you're trying to fix cars, write service, order parts, hire a couple of people, and then try and do this stuff at night when you have, a wife and 2 kids or whatever, man, it's no wonder so many guys are dropping out, just going back to work somewhere, because that is a really, really difficult stage to be in. And then Carm, like we talked about, going into consolidation, that at the end of the day, if your business is that small, it's really not even sellable. You don't have much of an asset that you're building. So as hard as it is, and there's a lot of training that needs to get somebody to be able to be successful, building a big enough business where you're doing $2.5 million out of a single location is pretty darn important for the longevity of your business and being able to get into that strategic mode. So that's a tough conversation. Not everybody agrees with me, but I just see that's where the future's going.
Thanks for that, Greg. Hey, if you haven't thought about your management software this year, it just may be time. Shopware's management system is transforming the way shops like yours do business by giving you the tools to increase your sales while delighting your customers. Go to shop-ware.com for all the details. more time, more profit. Last week, I had Bill Haas and Rick White. I know you all know them.
Mhm.
We talked about pricing from OE when we buy parts from OE. And the episode, as you could only well expect, went into a million different ways and places. And one of the things that was, belief in yourself and having the courage and the right value proposition. But one of the, I thought, gems that came out of it was, if you own the business, put your technician hat back on and think that you're working for a businessman. That's the key component here, a businessman, okay? And you go out and say, hey, I'm only going to make $30 on this $150 part that's coming from the OE. And the businessman looks at you and says, what? You would sell that $150 part you bought an aftermarket for maybe $299. Now, what are you doing to me by only making $30 on that? Whoa, wrong. I don't need you. Time out. Go. Put yourself in that businessman's shoe. Be the businessman here and make the right decisions. And I thought it was so profound that came out. It's like Rick White's thing. He says, put your hand over the invoice, and it doesn't matter where you buy it. It goes into the matrix.
That's smart.
Right?
Absolutely.
So what I'm hearing you all say, you need to have a level of sophistication of being the CEO, or Bob, you say that all the time. You've coined that / business person. So maybe CEO is a reach for some of our owners in our industry, but how about business person, professional business person, and have the accountability?
You know, Carm, one thing that get your accounting in order. Like if you can't go access your cash flow statement right now and it's not accurate, something's wrong. Like it's broken. Go fix it. That car is going to crash off the road, and it's your business, your livelihood. If you don't have an accurate P&L, if you don't have your accounting in order, you can outsource all that stuff for pennies on the dollars of doing it in-house today. Our world has shifted. So number one, if you don't get anything else out of this webinar or what we're doing here, go get your accounting in order, please. Make it a priority. Don't wait 6 months. Do it in 2 days, 3 days, 4 days. Make it a top priority, because the penalties of not having that in order are huge.
Wait a minute, Jeremy. I have QuickBooks.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Access it. If it's not accurate, it's broken. Go fix it.
But what is it telling me?
Get some education. Right?
See? What is it telling me? That's where
wait, hold on. Are you testing me? Or are you actually wanting me to answer the question for you?
I'm just dropping one of my famous,
I was waiting
comments.
for Bob to answer that question, Clark.
I do this a lot. I just drop a statement and say, what's he trying to tell me here?
Well, yeah. I mean, simply put, your cash flow statement is showing you where your cash is coming in and where it's going out. And you should be able to read it and it be accurate. I remember 2 years ago, I pulled it and I'm like, these numbers are so far off. This isn't right. There's no way, I think we were doing at the time about $75,000 a month. I pulled a monthly cash flow statement. It showed like $3,500. And I'm like, something's majorly wrong here. You've got to look at the numbers and it's got to make sense, right?
And Jeremy, you're absolutely right there. The issue about the statement, though, is that you've got to measure your business properly. You got to break it down. And I've seen too many shops just go parts, labor, and that's it. They have no clue where their business comes from and what revenue categories are really being achieved. Is it in the fluids, the tires, the batteries, aftermarket parts, both dealer categories, domestic, foreign nameplate, and then the various labor, maintenance labor, diagnostic labor, reflash labor, inspection labor. You got to know the mix of your business if you're going to generate the cash properly. And when you don't, you're working on emotion. You're working on emotion, and that doesn't make business.
If you guys look at my Facebook profile, so you got a picture there with Marcus Lemonis, and not everybody knows who he is, but he's the star of The Profit.
Yeah.
And I recommend every shop owner, every small business owner to watch that show.
Yep.
And if you haven't, what does he always do when he goes, all right, let's sit down and talk about numbers? And, the people that know their numbers, even if they're not great, are usually the people they invest in, the people that start squirming and don't know. And it's kind of funny, but in a sad way to watch, these business owners that don't have a clue. And those are the ones that he either gets burned on or he walks away from. So even if they're not great, you need to know your numbers.
So when I watch that show, Greg, I'm yelling at the TV.
Yeah. Don't do it, Marcus. Don't do it. Me too. Yeah. I don't watch football, but I'll watch business shows.
I know, me too. And I keep saying, if he buys it, I'm never going to watch the show again.
Run, Marcus, run. No, that's my feedback on it too. Like, That's a landmine waiting to happen.
You know, it's interesting. What Bob's talking about helps you become, it's going to guide your business into the future. So one of the things I talk about with service advisors is they've got to get the data to the shop owner as far as profiling the cars that we're working on. What's the demographic of your car? If your average age of vehicle is 15 to 16 years old that you're repairing right now, that's a dying market, simply because of the, you know, I don't want to get too far involved in the worth of a car and the worth of the repair and all that. But realistically, the demographic of the cars we work on move. The profitability of the jobs we work on moves as well. So if you're really profitable and strong in diagnosing vehicles and you can fix cars that other people can't in your town, well, you can simply market and get more of those cars in and increase your cash flow because you're target marketing where your revenues are coming from and the profits are coming from. So the other point I just wanted to share with everybody is, I admire Greg and Bob so much. I'm so honored to be on this call, but it would be an honor to have one of them as a coach simply because of the knowledge in taking me to that next level as a business owner. I wouldn't even worry about the cost. It's not a cost, it's an investment. So if you don't have a business coach, get one because they will give you insights to things you can't even see right now. And that
Jeremy, I can get you a 10% discount
Can you?
with either of these guys. just go to their website and type in CARM in the coupon offer.
There you go. There you go.
There we go. Absolutely. For sure.
Guys, I want to talk about symptoms of bad cash. You know, so I don't have it. And I know we can look in sales, we can look in AR and liabilities, because a lot of times we'll go on and we'll just go out and lease some equipment, and all of a sudden now it's a liability and it's another form of cash that I need to have to pay for that. And if I'm not looking at liabilities on my balance sheet and it's creeping up and I'm not quite aware of it, because in my gut I think, yeah, I got the cash. And it builds and it builds, your liabilities build. So you've got a sales issue, an AR issue, a liabilities issue, and a cost issue. Can any one of you wish to take one of those topics and say, hey, here's what you could do to be sure more cash shows up?
You know, it's just when you're leasing a piece of equipment, for example, as I said earlier, what's it going to do for my business this week, this month, this quarter? So if I have a lease payment of $800 a month on something, have I worked out how much it's going to generate for the business on a monthly basis? If it's going to generate $900 a month, I'm at break even. Forget it. This is ridiculous. I got to get my business in place to be able to do that. But if I'm spending $800 a month on a lease and it's going to generate $3,500 a month, now I'm getting a return on my investment in that lease. And I don't think a lot of people think like that. They just look at it, we need it, but they don't know how much it's going to generate. They hope it's going to generate. No, you've got to make sure it does generate before you make that final decision, because that is cash that is there that has to be utilized every month.
Well, I see two sides to that. And Bob, you're 100% right. I just, as you're talking about that, I'm thinking about when I very, very first started my business, the shop that I had worked at and managed before, we were pretty big on BG products, and I'm not endorsing one over the other. That's my personal favorite. But when I started my business, they had, if you commit to buying a certain amount of product, that they would give you the flush equipment and the tools for half price. And I was scared to death. But I knew, well, I couldn't provide those services if I didn't do it. So I bit the bullet. And, my first year in business, my BG rep came back and he was laughing at me because we had done 4 times as much volume as we needed to keep our half price deal. So at that point, whether it's a BG flush tool or an alignment machine, part of it becomes, hey, we just spent, $50,000 on an alignment machine. You better be asking every single customer, hey, would you, are you confident in the, when was the last time you had your alignment checked? We have that free with an oil change today or something. So sometimes it's a matter of adding a service to your business and knowing that part of the sales process needs to include paying for that new equipment. If it's really, a good service or repair that your company needs to offer to take care of your customers. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yep, absolutely.
And then with that, Carm, on the sales side of it, I think it's important to enroll your staff in the cash flow management of your business at a certain level. Like an advisor needs to understand it's not about the gross sale. Gross sales can actually be gross, right? So there are some sales that cost your shop money. And understanding there are certain times where it's okay to say no. There are certain times where you may need to pass on a repair, and, making a big sale that goes on ARR for a company that doesn't pay their bills, actually, we don't want to do that. Everybody's going to earn what they deserve. And part of your role, Mr. Service Advisor, is to get the profitable sales in. And here's our weekly cash flow that we need. And I love, Bob's idea of, looking at it monthly. On the sales side of it, man, it comes down to daily and even hourly. We got to ratchet this up and get the sales into production and get it out as well. So your service advisors have a key role to play in your cash flow management. It's important to include them in that conversation at a certain level.
And that's sorry, go ahead, Greg.
Oh, I was just going to say more and more shop owners that I'm talking to are now looking at the, and I believe Shopware actually has this as one of their tabs along with TypeMetric of gross profit dollars per hour. We've been hammered so hard through everybody that, percent. Well, what about the dollars per hour versus percentages? And so that's it's probably a deeper discussion for another podcast, but there really is a lot more to actual cash versus managing by percentages. And Bob, I'd love to hear your take on that because you're in the same world.
I'm looking at build hours very carefully per RO. And where should we be based on the mix of business that we are doing? Some commercial, are we doing cube vans, buses, whatever, and consumer work. So if you're monitoring your build hours, then we look at daily objectives for the team and weekly objectives. And then you have your morning scrum with the team. Here's where our build hours are. Here's what we did yesterday. Here's what we got on our plate today.
Right.
And I found when you're achieving the right build hours, everything else starts to fall in line. And that all of a sudden changes your cash position. But if the build hours are weak, then you've missed a lot of business. And the average shop is around 1.4 to 1.7 build hours per RO for consumer work, and it should be 2.5. And they're not addressing that. What happened to our inspection process? How do we change it? How do we, bring it up? And it's a great metrics to follow daily, weekly, with a monthly objective as well.
I love
Absolutely.
It just goes to show you the value of having a business coach, an advisor, and a consultant who understands these KPIs and metrics, will apply what you have to to their standard, and then help you live to that, and then never have a problem getting the new F-250 lease because you'll be able to justify it somehow, right?
Absolutely. So, and I just learned this, not that, for better or for worse, that a Tesla is actually heavy enough to qualify for that tax deduction, the same as your F-150. So I got a shop owner friend that bought a Tesla, and he uses it for R&D work instead of buying the traditional F-150.
So interesting. And, I love one of the points you brought up about percentages, Greg. In my travels in my life, people say, well, yeah, I bought the part for, $1. I sold it for $2. I made 100% margin on it. And then I do my gross margin thing. And I say, well, it was really only a 50% gross profit margin. And you're living in the wrong world.
Yeah.
And they don't understand that we pay bills with gross margin dollars and we don't pay with percent. So the reason our industry needs to stop talking about percentages, although yes, the matrix is critically important and it's got to have good disciplines.
Right.
The money that's generated on the sale, the gross margin dollar, is every piece of the component of what cash we have left. Is if the management of the costs is there, and I'm not investing that cash in accounts receivable and bad liabilities.
Well, when I hear people say, well, there's no money in tires, I say, really? Well, let's look at Discount Tire, a $17 billion with a B dollar company. They don't have a crappy location anywhere. They all have super prime real estate, beautiful buildings. Do not tell me there's no money in tires. Maybe you don't know how to make money on tires, but don't tell me there's no money in tires. All of the big guys, right? We talk about that in my mergers and acquisitions class. All of them are looking. If you ever want to sell your business to a big player, you better have tires in your mix because they make money on tires. They know how to make money on tires. And again, that's a different discussion. But if you just look at the percentages, you're right. You don't make percentages on tires, but you do make dollars on tires.
We're actually going to do a Town Hall Academy on tires coming up.
What?
We're actually going to do one with I don't sell tires and I do sell tires and try to close the gap. Jeremy, you were going to say?
It looks like you got one of your panelists right there. So.
Yeah.
That's funny because we do not sell tires at our shop, but it is something we are bringing in the next 12 months because of the missed opportunity. And it's just something that, is there. So I do believe there is a lot of money in tires. And besides, I grew up in a gas station selling tires on the drive at 8 years old. So it's in my DNA. Perfect.
I believe in tire. Excuse me. I just had a. I believe in tires because years ago, back in the old family business, we were a big Goodyear distributor. So
Nice.
I get all that stuff. I really do. Hey, let's talk SMS systems, shop management systems. Now's the time probably to make a big decision to transform your shop. Now, break away from your legacy SMS and embrace Shopware. And they've got one heck of a management system. Shopware can show you the way to increase profits from happier customers. Who doesn't want them, and a more efficient staff? And that would be cool, huh? Give those guys a break. Visit shop-ware.com/demo for a free preview. Thank you, Carolyn and the group from Shopware as a sponsor this year for the Town Hall Academy. Guys, Bob Greenwood, CEO, Automotive Aftermarket E-Learning Center, Greg Bunch from Aspen Auto Clinic, and the president of Transformers Mastermind, a multi-shop owner group. Are you doing single shops now too?
We do. So it's the website is actually Transformers Institute. Right now we have 3 mastermind groups. 2 of them are a combination of single and multi-store owners. Then we've got a platinum group that's all multi-store owners, and we're creating we've got a waiting list for probably another single store, smaller, 1 million plus group, and then another list for multi-store owners. And as we all know, there's just not a lot of support and training, for people that want to go multi-store or people that are multi-store. And that's where we've come to the market and been able to really make a difference.
Yeah.
So
if I was wanting to grow, that's where I need to hang out.
Absolutely.
So I can learn from them. And Jeremy O'Neill, Freedom Auto Repair in Hesperia, California, and AdvisorFix. Guys, I want to give one last opportunity to say one last thing here about the fact that cash is king. And let's leave a great little gem here for our listener who will listen to this forever once it becomes a podcast next Thursday. I'll start with you, Greg.
Sounds good. Do not commingle funds. It is the biggest temptation of shop owners. I understand, you got a company car, you put gas in your car, your cell phone. Those are true legitimate things that the IRS is, from my understanding, not going to bother you with. But, people that buy mountain bikes and boats and all kinds of stuff and run it through their business, number one, they're putting themselves in huge jeopardy if they do get audited. But number two, you're devaluing your company. Because now you've got to explain to a potential buyer that all those cash tickets really don't land in the bank, and I put this on, and it erodes your credibility, it erodes your profit statement. And so just, yes, you're going to pay a little more taxes, and I'm not a fan of paying more taxes than you should, but at the end of the day, give Uncle Sam what's due. The banks will be more likely to lend you the money when you need it because your profit statements are accurate. It helps you go back to what I said in the beginning of living on you have a personal budget and you have a business budget and you stick to it and you keep from commingling funds. So a lot of great advice has been thrown out here in the last 40 minutes, but want to make sure I covered that.
Excellent. Great stuff. Appreciate it, Greg. Thank you so much. Robert?
Holding on to the old business model that I call the old aftermarket affects your cash flow dramatically. Today, you have to have the right balance in your business. You have to learn how to manage that balance to make sure you've got the right cash flow consistently being created. And I think more owners have got to just slow down and start thinking about their business and getting the numbers accurate so that they can evaluate the business properly. Just watching what's going on down the street or with your peers is you're different. So know your numbers. Ask yourself, is this going to be a good move for the business this week, this month, this quarter, this year? How am I utilizing my cash? And when you start answering that question consistently, you're going to be making the right decisions for your business.
Great advice. Thank you, Robert. Jeremy, I'll let you sum this puppy up.
Well, for me, everything begins with a single step. So take action. And no matter where you're at, if you are hurting, go start saving $20 a day and walk it down to the bank and deposit it, because it's going to change your money psychology. So whether you need more cash, look at your pricing, make the appropriate changes, and then take action. Get your accounting in order, and then watch this episode again and all of CARM's 500 for the records, because the wealth of knowledge will explode your mind. So take action, guys.
Thank you, Jay. It kind of reminds me of that going to the gym. I got to go. Then you go, and then you say, that was good. And then you start going every other day, and then you miss it if you don't go daily.
Well, remember, you're sore at first. So it's like, man, I can't buy that toy that I used to buy.
That's a great point. Yeah, you're very sore at first until you get your cash managed.
Right.
Yeah.
Then it feels good. You're like, man, I'm not spending any money. This is, I don't want to drop below this amount or whatever. So it becomes opposite.
So here it is. Become a cash hoarder.
Yes. But pay your people well. Don't take it out on your people.
Yeah.
We need to pay good people to thrive in this industry.
Very, very good point. Thank you, Greg. Thanks, Jeremy. Greg, Robert, appreciate it so much. Bye, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
All right.